The grand throne room of the Dragon Empire stood silent and empty. Massive pillars reached up to the ceiling, each one carved with images of ancient dragon battles. Golden light filtered through tall windows, making patterns on the marble floor. In the center of this huge room sat Empress Hannah, alone. Her wheelchair gleamed in the afternoon sun. It was not an ordinary wheelchair. The frame was made from dragon scales, arranged in beautiful patterns of silver and blue. Anti-gravity generators hummed softly beneath the seat, allowing it to hover a few inches above the ground. But even with all its beauty and technology, it was still a wheelchair. And in the Dragon Empire, that meant weakness. Hannah looked at the small cake on the table in front of her. It had exactly 5 candles on it, representing 500 years of life. Her servant had placed it there this morning before quietly leaving. No celebration. No guests. No songs or laughter. Just a cake and an empty room. She touched one of the candles with her finger, watching the flame dance. 500 years ago today, she had been born into the royal dragon family. She had grown up strong and fierce. She had trained as a warrior. She had led armies across the stars. She had become Empress and ruled with wisdom and strength. That was before the battle. Hannah closed her eyes and remembered. 10 years ago, the Kroval invasion force had attacked the Empire's core worlds. Millions of dragons lived on those planets. The enemy ships had been massive, their weapons designed to destroy entire cities in seconds. The Dragon Council had wanted to retreat, to save the fleet and regroup later. But Hannah had refused. Those were her people down there. Families. Children. Innocent lives that trusted her to protect them. She had led the defense herself, flying her command ship directly into the heart of the enemy formation. The battle had lasted 3 days. On the final day, when victory seemed impossible, Hannah had made a choice. She had redirected all her ship's power to the main weapon, leaving nothing for shields or life support. The blast had destroyed the entire enemy fleet. It had also destroyed her ship. When they pulled her from the wreckage, the doctors told her the damage was permanent. The energy surge had burned through her nervous system. Her legs would never work again. She would spend the rest of her very long life in a wheelchair. But the Empire had been saved. Millions of lives had been protected. Hannah had thought her people would understand. She had thought they would remember what she had sacrificed for them. She had been wrong. Dragon culture valued strength above everything else. Physical power. The ability to fight. To fly. To stand tall and fierce. A dragon who could not walk was seen as broken. Useless. Weak. At first, the courtiers had tried to hide their feelings. They came to court. They bowed. They spoke the right words. But Hannah saw it in their eyes. Pity. Disgust. Shame. Within a year, most had stopped coming entirely. The grand celebrations became smaller, then smaller still. Now, on her 500th birthday, she sat alone. Even Lord Deho, who commanded the Western Fleet, had started missing council meetings. He sent messages instead, claiming he was too busy with defense matters. But Hannah knew the truth. He did not want to see his Empress in a wheelchair. It reminded him that dragons could be vulnerable. A single tear rolled down Hannah's cheek. She wiped it away quickly, even though no one was there to see. Empresses did not cry, but the loneliness hurt worse than the injury ever had. She reached forward to blow out the candles. What was the point of making a wish? Wishes did not change reality. They did not make legs work again. They did not bring back friends who had abandoned you. Then she heard voices outside the throne room doors. Hannah straightened in her wheelchair, quickly composing herself. Who would dare disturb her today? She had given orders that she wanted privacy. The voices got louder. Someone was arguing with the guards. She heard a man's voice, speaking the common tongue with a human accent. Then a child's voice, high and insistent. But she looked so sad. We should help her feel better. Yuna, we cannot just walk into the Empress's private chambers, another male voice said, this one gentler. Why not? When I'm sad, you stay with me. She needs someone to stay with her too. Hannah felt her heart skip a beat. She had two hearts, like all dragons. Right now, both of them were beating faster. A child wanted to celebrate with her? After all this time? She heard the head guard's stern voice. You cannot enter. The Empress has requested no visitors. Please, the first man said. My friend's daughter just wanted to give her something. A birthday card. She worked on it all morning. That is not permitted. Return to your duties. Hannah made a decision. She activated her wheelchair's controls and glided toward the massive doors. Her voice rang out, clear and commanding despite the emotions swirling inside her. Let them enter. The doors slowly opened. 3 humans stood in the entrance, looking surprised. 2 adult men and a small girl between them. The first man was tall and wore the dark blue uniform of a mechanic. His hands were stained with engine grease, and he carried a tool bag over his shoulder. His hair was black and messy, falling into his eyes. He looked nervous but determined. The second man wore the gray uniform of a communications officer. He was shorter, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He held the little girl's hand protectively. The girl could not have been more than 6 years old. She had her hair in 2 ponytails and wore a simple pink dress. In her other hand, she clutched a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings. The mechanic bowed quickly, almost dropping his tool bag. Your Majesty, I am Juno. I work on the palace starships. This is Tamine, he works in communications. And this is his daughter, Yuna. Tamine bowed as well, more gracefully. We apologize for the intrusion, Your Majesty. We know it is improper, but... He looked down at Yuna, who was staring at Hannah with wide, curious eyes. No fear. No pity. Just innocent curiosity. You're the dragon lady, Yuna said softly. I saw you through the window yesterday. You looked lonely. Hannah felt her breath catch. No one had been that honest with her in years. Dragons hid their feelings behind formal words and political games. But this child just spoke the simple truth. I made you a birthday card, Yuna continued. She stepped forward, still holding up the crayon drawing. Daddy said everyone should have friends on their birthday. Juno spoke up, his voice uncertain. Your Majesty, we know we should not be here. If you want us to leave, we will go immediately. But Yuna asked if we could celebrate with you, and I thought. He trailed off, looking embarrassed. I thought maybe you might like the company. Hannah looked at the 3 humans standing in her doorway. They had no obligation to be here. They were not courtiers seeking favor. They were not nobles pretending to care. They were just ordinary people who had seen someone alone on her birthday and wanted to help. For the first time in 10 years, Empress Hannah smiled a real smile. Can we stay? Juno asked quietly. Hannah nodded, not trusting her voice. She gestured toward the table with a small cake. Please. I would be honored by your company. As the 3 humans entered the throne room, Hannah felt something shift inside her. Maybe, just maybe, this birthday would not be so lonely after all. Yuna ran to the table and carefully placed her crayon drawing next to the birthday cake. Hannah leaned forward in her wheelchair to look at it. The picture showed a tall figure with wings and a crown, sitting in what looked like a chair with wheels. Around the figure, Yuna had drawn hearts and stars in every color. At the top, in wobbly letters, it said, Happy Birthday, Pretty Dragon Lady. Hannah touched the paper gently, as if it might break. This is beautiful, Yuna. Thank you. Yuna beamed with pride. I used all my best crayons. Daddy helped me spell the words. Tamine smiled and guided his daughter to one of the chairs near the table. Juno stood awkwardly, still holding his tool bag. He looked around the massive throne room like he could not believe he was really there. Please sit, Hannah said, gesturing to the other chairs. Both of you. Juno carefully set down his tool bag and sat. He kept his hands on his knees, clearly trying not to touch anything important. Tamine sat next to his daughter, one hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Hannah looked at the 3 of them. Her throne room had been designed to hold hundreds of people for grand celebrations. Now it held just four, sitting around a small table with a tiny cake. Somehow, it felt more full than it had in years. "How did you know it was my birthday?" Hannah asked. Tameen answered. "The palace calendar marks all imperial dates. We saw that today was your 500th birthday." When Yuna asked why there was no celebration, I did not know what to tell her. "All birthdays need celebrations," Yuna said firmly. "That's the rule." Hannah felt another smile pulling at her lips. "Is that so?" "Yes. When it's my birthday, Daddy makes me pancakes and we invite all my friends. You should have friends too." The innocent words hit harder than Hannah expected. She looked down at her hands, not sure what to say. Juno cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, I hope we are not overstepping. Tameen and I have worked in the palace for 2 years now. We have heard stories about you. About the Battle of Croval Prime. About how you saved millions of lives. The dragons who serve in the military still talk about it," Tameen added quietly. "They say you are the greatest strategic mind the Empire has ever known." Hannah shook her head. "That was a long time ago. Things are different now." "Different how?" Yuna asked, tilting her head. How could Hannah explain to a child? How could she describe the way her own people looked at her now? The way they whispered when she passed? The way her wheelchair made them uncomfortable? Juno seemed to understand her hesitation. "Your Majesty, may I speak plainly?" Hannah nodded. "I work on the starships. I see the dragon pilots and crew every day. Some of them treat us humans like we are lesser beings. They think because we cannot breathe fire or fly, we are weak." Juno leaned forward slightly. "But the smart ones know that humans bring different strengths. We understand technology in ways dragons do not. We solve problems differently. We are not weak. We are just different." Tameen picked up the thought. "When I first came to the Empire, I was alone. My wife had died in a transport accident. I had Yuna to care for, and I did not know if I could do it by myself. I felt weak, broken, like I had failed." "But you didn't fail," Yuna said, looking up at her father. "You're the best daddy ever." Tameen smiled and ruffled her hair. "Thank you, sweet one. But my point is, I learned that asking for help is not weakness. Building new connections is not weakness. Adapting to change is not weakness." Hannah felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. These humans understood. They had faced their own struggles, their own moments of feeling less than others. And they had found a way forward. "Would you like some cake?" Hannah asked, changing the subject before the emotions became too strong. "Yes, please." Yuna bounced in her chair. Hannah cut the small cake into 4 pieces. It was barely enough for all of them, but somehow that made it better. They were sharing something simple together. As they ate, Yuna asked questions. She wanted to know what it was like to be a dragon. Could Hannah breathe fire? Could she fly before the accident? What was her favorite color? Did she have any pets? Hannah answered each question patiently. She found herself laughing at Yuna's reactions. When Hannah mentioned that yes, she could still breathe fire, Yuna's eyes went wide. "Can you show me?" "Yuna," Tameen said quickly, "you cannot ask the Empress to perform for you." But Hannah was already smiling. She took a deep breath and exhaled gently. A small stream of silver flame flickered from her mouth, dancing in the air before fading away. Yuna clapped her hands. That was so pretty. Like sparklers. As they finished the cake, Juno kept glancing at Hannah's wheelchair. Finally, he could not help himself. "Your Majesty, I do not mean to be rude, but I noticed your wheelchair is making a strange sound. The left repulsor unit sounds off balance." Hannah had noticed it too, but the palace mechanics had told her it was working fine. They had seemed eager to leave her presence as quickly as possible. "Would you mind if I looked at it?" Juno asked. "It is what I do. I fix things." Hannah hesitated, then nodded. Juno grabbed his tool bag and moved behind her wheelchair. He pulled out a small scanner and ran it over the repulsor units. "Just as I thought," he muttered. "This unit is running at 60% efficiency. No wonder it feels unstable." He pulled out a wrench and some other tools. "With your permission, Your Majesty, I can fix this right now." "Please go ahead." As Juno worked, Tamine asked Hannah about her duties as Empress. She explained how she managed the Empire's affairs, oversaw trade agreements, and coordinated defense strategies. Even from her wheelchair, even without the respect of her court, she still worked every day to protect her people. "That must be lonely," Tamine said softly. "Doing so much for people who do not appreciate it." Hannah looked at him. "You understand that feeling? I work in communications. I make sure messages reach every corner of the Empire. I coordinate emergency broadcasts. I keep systems running smoothly." Tamine smiled sadly. "Most people never think about it. They just expect everything to work. And when I go home, it is just Yuna and me. I love her more than anything, but yes, sometimes it is lonely." "I get lonely too sometimes," Yuna admitted. "My friends at school have mommies and daddies. I just have Daddy. But that's okay, because Daddy is really good at being both." Juno finished his repairs and came back around to face Hannah. "Try it now, Your Majesty." Hannah activated the controls. The wheelchair moved smoothly, without the slight vibration she had gotten used to. It felt stable and strong. "Much better," she said, genuinely impressed. "Thank you, Juno." "It was nothing. Though I noticed a few other things that could use upgrading. If you would allow it, I could improve the system. Make it faster, more responsive." Before Hannah could answer, a loud alarm blared through the throne room. All four of them jumped. Red lights began flashing along the walls. Tamine pulled out his communication device. His face went pale as he read the message. "What is it?" Hannah demanded, her voice instantly sharp and commanding. Tamine looked up, fear in his eyes. "Your Majesty, Lord Deho is coming. He has 6 palace guards with him, and he is demanding immediate entry to the throne room." The massive doors burst open. Lord Deho strode in, his dragon form barely contained in humanoid shape. He wore full ceremonial armor, golden and intimidating. The 6 guards behind him carried energy weapons. Deho's eyes swept the room, landing on Hannah sitting with the 3 humans. His lip curled in disgust. "How pathetic," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "The mighty Empress, celebrating her birthday with servants and children." Hannah straightened in her wheelchair, her voice cold as ice. "Lord Deho, you were not invited." "I do not need an invitation." Deho stepped closer. "I come with a message from the Dragon Council. They have voted. Your time as Empress is over." Juno stood up quickly, moving slightly in front of Hannah's wheelchair. Tamine pulled Yuna behind him, protecting his daughter. Deho laughed. "And now humans defend you? This proves everything. You have become weak, Hannah. You spend your time with lesser beings because your own kind will not have you." "These people are my guests," Hannah said, her voice deadly quiet. "You will treat them with respect." "I will not." Deho pulled out a data tablet. "The Council has given you 2 choices. Abdicate the throne willingly and retire in peace. Or refuse, and we will remove you by force." He smiled cruelly. "Either way, your reign ends today." Hannah felt Juno's hand rest gently on her wheelchair's handle, a silent show of support. She felt Tamine step closer to her other side. Even little Yuna peeked out from behind her father, her small hand reaching out to touch Hannah's. For the first time in 10 years, Empress Hannah did not feel alone. And that changed everything. Lord Deho moved closer to the table, his armored boots echoing on the marble floor. The 6 guards spread out behind him, their weapons ready. The red warning lights continued to flash, making shadows dance across the walls. "You have until sunset to decide," Deho said, looking down at Hannah. "Abdicate peacefully, or face the consequences." Juno stepped forward, placing himself directly between Daiho and Hannah. "You cannot do this. Imperial law says only the Empress herself can choose to abdicate. The Council has no authority to remove her." Daiho's eyes narrowed as he looked at the human mechanic. "You dare speak of dragon law to me? You are nothing but a grease-stained worker. Go back to your engines before I have you arrested." "He is right, though," Taemin said, his voice calm but firm. He had pulled out his communication device and was rapidly typing. "I am looking at Imperial Code, Section 12. The Council can advise the Empress, but they cannot force her to abdicate. Only in cases of mental incapacity or treason can they override her authority." Daiho's face darkened. "Put that device away." "Why?" Taemin asked innocently. "I am just checking the law. As a communications officer, I have access to all public records." His fingers kept moving across the screen. "In fact, I am also starting a live broadcast. Every citizen in the Empire can now see and hear what is happening in this room." "What?" Daiho spun around, looking at the palace security cameras. Their indicator lights had changed from red to green. They were active and recording. Taemin smiled slightly. "I may not be able to breathe fire, Lord Daiho, but I know how to use technology. Right now, thousands of citizens are watching this conversation. Soon it will be millions." One of the guards moved toward Taemin, but Juno blocked his path. "I would not do that if I were you. Attacking a communications officer during an official broadcast? That would not look good for the Council." Daiho's jaw clenched. "You think this changes anything? The people know the truth. They know she is weak. They know the Empire needs strong leadership." "I am not weak," Hannah said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She sat straighter in her wheelchair, her eyes locked on Daiho. The Dragon Lord had known her for centuries. He had served under her command. He had seen her lead armies and win impossible battles. "I lost my legs saving your family's home world," Hannah continued, her voice growing stronger. "Do you remember, Daiho? The Kroval fleet was heading directly for the western colonies. Your mother, your brothers, your entire clan lived there. You were on the far side of the Empire, commanding a patrol fleet. You could not get back in time." Daiho's expression flickered. "That has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with this," Hannah said. "I could have retreated. I could have saved my ship and my body. But then millions would have died. Your family would have died. So I made a choice. I gave up my legs to save them." Yuna tugged on her father's sleeve. "Why is the mean dragon being so rude? The Empress saved his family." Her child's voice carried clearly in the large room. Taemin gently covered her mouth, but it was too late. The words had been broadcast across the Empire. Daiho's face turned red. "I am grateful for what you did. But gratitude does not change reality. You cannot command armies from a wheelchair. You cannot fly into battle. You cannot stand before the enemy and strike fear into their hearts." "No," Juno said suddenly. "She cannot do those things. But she can do something far more important." Daiho glared at him. "And what is that, human?" Juno walked over to a control panel on the wall. His fingers flew across the holographic interface. Suddenly, images appeared in the air above them. Battle plans, trade routes, defense grids, resource allocations. "I may be just a mechanic," Juno said, "but I have access to maintenance logs for every ship in the fleet. I see which ships are combat-ready and which need repairs. I see which systems are working and which are failing." He pointed at the holographic displays. "These plans are the Empress's work. She created them all. Every defense strategy the Empire uses right now came from her mind." More images appeared. Taemin had added data from the communications network. These are the trade agreements she negotiated in the past year, the alliances she formed, the diplomatic solutions she found to avoid wars. Taemin looked at Daiho. "She has prevented 3 major conflicts in the last 6 months alone. She did it with words and strategy, not with physical strength. Daiho waved his hand dismissively. Strategy means nothing if warriors do not respect their leader. The military needs someone they can look up to. Someone who represents strength. They need someone who represents wisdom, a new voice said. Everyone turned. An older dragon in military uniform stood in the doorway. He walked slowly into the throne room, his movements careful and dignified. His scales were gray with age, and he leaned on a walking stick. "General Miho," Hana breathed. The general bowed to her. "Your Majesty, forgive my late arrival." He turned to face Daiho. "I heard about this council vote. I came as quickly as I could." Daiho straightened. "General, you are retired. This does not concern you." "It concerns every dragon who ever served under Empress Hana," Miho said firmly. "I fought beside her for 200 years. I was there at Croval Prime. I saw what she sacrificed." He looked at Hana with respect. "And I have watched how she has led the Empire since then. Her strategic mind is sharper than ever. Her decisions have saved countless lives." "But she cannot fight," Daiho insisted. "Neither can I anymore," Miho said, tapping his walking stick on the floor. "Age has taken my strength. My wings no longer carry me. Does that make my experience worthless? Does that erase my victories?" Daiho had no answer for that. Miho continued. "You speak of strength, Lord Daiho. But strength comes in many forms. The Empress shows strength every day by continuing to serve her people, even when those people have abandoned her." He gestured to Juno, Tamine, and Yuna. "These humans understand what you have forgotten. Loyalty, compassion, honor. They came to celebrate with someone who was alone, expecting nothing in return." Yuna stepped forward, still holding her crayon drawing. She walked right up to Daiho, fearless despite his size and armor. "My daddy says real strength is being kind when it is hard," she said, looking up at the Dragon Lord. "You are being mean to someone nice. That is not strong. That is just mean." Silence filled the throne room. The guards looked uncomfortable. Daiho stared down at the small human child who had just lectured him. Before anyone could speak, alarms blared again. But these were different alarms. Louder. More urgent. Tamine grabbed his communication device. His face went white. "Your Majesty, we have an emergency. Enemy ships have appeared at the border. Hundreds of them. They are attacking our outer defense stations." Hana's entire demeanor changed instantly. "Show me." Tamine projected the tactical display into the air. Red dots swarmed along the Empire's eastern border, overwhelming the defense stations one by one. "How many ships?" Hana demanded. "At least 400. Maybe more. They are coming through multiple jump points at once." General Miho leaned closer to the display. "This is a coordinated invasion. They must have been planning this for months." "They knew," Hana said quietly, her eyes scanning the tactical data. "They knew about the Council's move against me. They knew the Empire would be divided. They chose this moment to attack." Daiho stood frozen, staring at the display. The invasion was hitting the eastern colonies. His political allies controlled those systems. Thousands of dragons lived there. "We need to respond immediately," Miho said. "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" All eyes turned to Hana. Even the guards were watching her now, waiting for her command. Daiho finally found his voice. "This changes nothing. The Council's decision stands. You must abdicate." Hana looked at him with cold fury. "People are dying, Daiho. Right now. While you play political games, the Empire is under attack." She activated her wheelchair and moved toward the tactical display. "You can have your power struggle after we save those colonies. Or you can help me save them now." "I will not take orders from you," Daiho said stubbornly. "Then you are a fool," General Miho snapped. "And a coward. The enemy is not interested in your politics. They are interested in conquest. If we do not work together, the Empire will fall." Juno stepped forward. "Tell us what to do, Your Majesty. We will help however we can." Tamine nodded. "Every human worker in this palace will follow your orders. We know who the real leader is." Hannah looked at the 3 humans who had come to celebrate her birthday. Then she looked at General Miho, who still believed in her. Finally, she looked at Lord Deho and his guards. "Choose now, Deho," she said. "Stand with me and save the Empire, or stand against me and watch it burn. What will it be?" The Dragon Lord stood there, his pride warring with his duty. The tactical display showed more defense stations falling, more lives being lost. Time was running out. Deho stared at the tactical display. The red dots representing enemy ships continued to spread across the eastern border. Another defense station went dark as he watched. He could almost hear the screams of the dragons stationed there. "Fine," he said through clenched teeth. "I will follow your orders. For now." Hannah did not waste time acknowledging his surrender. She was already moving, her wheelchair gliding smoothly to the center of the tactical display. Her eyes scanned the data, processing everything in seconds. "Tamine, open a channel to all military commanders. I need every available ship ready to move in 10 minutes. "Yes, Your Majesty." Tamine's fingers flew across his device. Within seconds, his voice was broadcasting across the entire military network. "All commanders, this is a priority alert from Empress Hannah. Report your status immediately." Responses started coming in. Ship captains and fleet commanders reported from across the Empire. Some sounded surprised to hear from the Empress directly. Others sounded relieved. "General Miho," Hannah continued, "I need you to coordinate the Western Defense Fleet. Move them to position Beta 7. They will serve as our reserve force." Miho saluted. "At once, Your Majesty." He pulled out his own communication device and began issuing orders. Despite his age, his voice carried the authority of decades of command. Hannah turned to Deho. "Your ships are closest to the invasion point. Take your fleet and engage the enemy's northern formation. Do not try to destroy them. Just slow them down." "Slow them down." Deho frowned. "Why not attack with full force?" "Because they want you to do that," Hannah said, pointing at the display. "Look at their formation. They are spread thin, inviting us to chase them. If we commit our forces to direct combat, they will spring their trap. There are more ships waiting to jump in behind us." Juno leaned closer to the display, studying the patterns. "How can you tell?" "Experience," Hannah said. "I have seen this tactic before. The Croval used it at the Battle of Meridian. They sacrifice a forward fleet to draw defenders out of position, then bring in their main force to attack undefended targets." She manipulated the display, highlighting several points along the border. "See these gaps in their formation? Those are jump points. More ships will come through there within the hour." Tamine looked impressed. "So we need to defend those points before they arrive." "Exactly," Hannah said. She opened another channel. "Commander Hyun, take the 3rd Fleet to Jump Point Alpha 4. Establish defensive positions and wait for my signal." A female voice responded. "Your Majesty, that point is currently empty. Are you certain?" "I am certain, Commander. Trust me." There was a brief pause. "Yes, Your Majesty. Moving to position now." More orders flowed from Hannah. She coordinated 17 different fleets, moving them like pieces on a game board. Each commander received specific instructions. Each position served a purpose in her larger strategy. Juno watched in amazement. This was not the lonely Empress he had found sitting with a birthday cake. This was a military genius conducting a symphony of war. Her voice never wavered. Her orders never hesitated. She saw the entire battlefield in her mind and knew exactly where each piece needed to be. "Juno," Hannah said suddenly, "I need you to do something." "Anything, Your Majesty." "Access the palace maintenance systems. Reroute power from all non-essential systems to the defensive shields. Every ship in dock needs to be at full power in 5 minutes. Juno pulled out his tools and ran to a wall panel. His hands worked quickly, bypassing safety protocols and redirecting power flows. Done, Your Majesty. All docked ships are charging their shields now. Good. Tamine, I need you to coordinate civilian evacuations from the colonies under attack. Work with local governments to get people to safety. Right away, Tamine said. He began contacting planetary governors, organizing emergency transport ships. Una stood quietly near her father, watching everything with wide eyes. She did not understand all the military terms, but she understood that the Dragon Lady was saving people. Just like in the stories Daddy read to her. The tactical display updated. The enemy ships were moving closer to the colonies. They would reach the first populated planet in 20 minutes. Daiho growled in frustration. My ships are in position, but the enemy is bypassing us. They are heading straight for the colonies. Let them, Hannah said calmly. What? We cannot just let them attack civilians. We are not going to let them do anything, Hannah said. Keep your position. Trust the plan. Daiho looked like he wanted to argue, but General Miho put a hand on his shoulder. Trust her. She knows what she is doing. The minutes ticked by. The enemy fleet drew closer to the colonies. Commanders started reporting in, their voices tight with tension. They could see the enemy approaching. They wanted permission to engage. Hannah waited. Your Majesty, one commander said urgently, they are almost in firing range. We need to act now. Hold position, Hannah ordered. Juno found himself holding his breath. The enemy ships were so close to the colony now. Millions of dragons lived on that planet. Why was Hannah waiting? Then, exactly as Hannah had predicted, new enemy ships appeared. Hundreds of them jumped in through the gaps she had identified. They appeared right where she had sent her reserve fleets. Now, Hannah said. All ships, execute Battle Plan Omega-3. The entire Imperial fleet moved as one. The ships that had been waiting at the jump points engaged the new enemy forces immediately, catching them by surprise. The ships behind the main enemy fleet cut off their retreat. The forces that had seemed scattered suddenly formed a perfect encirclement. The enemy had walked directly into Hannah's trap. All ships, fire at will, Hannah commanded. The battle erupted across 100,000 kilometers of space. Imperial ships poured fire into the surrounded enemy fleet. The invaders tried to break free, but every escape route was blocked. They had come to conquer and found themselves caged instead. Within minutes, enemy ships began surrendering. Their commanders had not expected such a coordinated response. They had thought the Empire was weak and divided. They had been wrong. Tamine monitored the communications, his face showing relief. Your Majesty, we are receiving surrender signals from multiple enemy vessels. The invasion is collapsing. Hannah allowed herself a small smile. Bring the prisoners to the detention facilities. Treat them according to the rules of war. And get medical ships to any wounded, ours or theirs. General Miho laughed, a sound of pure joy. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You let them think they had the advantage, then close the trap around them. Daiho stood silent, staring at the tactical display. The battle was essentially over. The Empire had won with minimal casualties. And it had taken less than an hour. How did you know? He asked quietly. How did you know exactly where they would appear? Hannah turned her wheelchair to face him. Because I studied them. I learned their tactics. I prepared for this possibility. She gestured to the display. While you were worried about my wheelchair, I was working to keep the Empire safe. Every single day. Daiho looked down at the floor. For the first time, shame crossed his face. Juno stepped forward, unable to contain his excitement. That was incredible. I have never seen anything like it. The Empress is the greatest military mind in Imperial history, General Miho said proudly. That has not changed, wheelchair or not. Una walked up to Hannah and took her hand. You saved all those people. You are a hero. Hannah looked down at the little girl. I just did my duty. No, Tameen said, putting away his communication device. You did more than duty. You proved that leadership is not about physical strength. It is about wisdom, experience, and the courage to make hard decisions. He looked at Daeho. Perhaps some people need to be reminded of that. The throne room fell silent. The battle was won, but the political situation remained unresolved. Daeho and his council still wanted Hannah to abdicate. The only difference now was that she had just saved thousands of lives while they had stood by arguing about power. The massive doors opened again. This time, dozens of people entered. Human workers from across the palace. Mechanics like Juno. Engineers. Technicians. Communications officers. They filed into the throne room and stood together, facing Daeho and his guards. A woman in an engineer's uniform stepped forward. We heard what was happening. We wanted Lord Daeho to know something. She looked at Hannah with respect. If the council tries to remove the Empress by force, they will have to go through all of us first. More humans appeared behind the first group. Then some dragons joined them. Younger dragons mostly, soldiers who had served under Hannah's command. They stood with the humans, united. The Empress gave us opportunities when no one else would, another human said. She treated us with dignity and respect. She saw our value when others saw only weakness. A dragon soldier spoke up. She taught me strategy when I was just a rookie pilot. She took time to mentor me personally. Because of her, I survived my first real battle. More voices joined in. People sharing stories of how Hannah had helped them. How she had been there for them. How she had led with wisdom and compassion even as her own court abandoned her. Daeho looked around the throne room. It was filling with people. Not courtiers seeking favor. Not nobles playing political games. Just ordinary dragons and humans who believed in their Empress. This is not over, Daeho said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, General Miho said firmly, it is. The throne room continued to fill with people. Workers. Soldiers. Families. They came from every corner of the palace, drawn by Tameen's broadcast and by word spreading through the halls. They came to stand with their Empress. Lord Daeho looked at his 6 guards. The guards looked back at him uncertainly. They were outnumbered now, surrounded by hundreds of people who would defend Hannah. More importantly, they had just watched her save the Empire while the council had done nothing but argue about politics. Lord Daeho, Hannah said, her voice carrying across the crowded room. You came here today to remove me from power. You said I was weak. That I could not lead. That my wheelchair made me unfit to rule. She gestured to the tactical display, still showing the defeated enemy fleet. I believe I have proven otherwise. Daeho said nothing. His jaw was tight, his pride clearly wounded. General Miho walked to the center of the room. I served the Empire for 300 years. I have seen many leaders come and go. Some ruled with strength and brutality. Others ruled with cunning and deception. He turned to face Hannah. But I have only known one leader who ruled with true wisdom. One leader who put her people before herself. One leader who sacrificed everything to protect those she served. He knelt down on one knee, his old joints creaking. Empress Hannah, you have my loyalty. Today. Tomorrow. Always. One by one, the other dragons in the room began to kneel. The soldiers first, then the workers, then even some of Daeho's own guards. They recognized what their council had forgotten. Leadership was not about physical power. It was about the strength of character and the wisdom to make difficult choices. The humans did not kneel. Hannah had told them years ago that kneeling was a dragon custom, not a human one. Instead, they placed their right hands over their hearts, a human gesture of loyalty and respect. Juno, Tameen, and little Yuna stood together, their hands over their hearts. Yuna was copying her father, even though she did not fully understand what was happening. She just knew that the Dragon Lady needed friends, and friends stood together. Daeho looked around at the sea of people supporting Hannah. His political power was meaningless here. His council votes meant nothing. The people had spoken with their presence. The council will hear of this, Deho said, but his voice was weak. Let them hear, Hannah said. Let them hear that when the Empire was in danger, I defended it. Let them hear that while they plotted against me, I was preparing for the real threats. Let them hear that the people they claim to represent have chosen to stand with me. Deho turned to leave, but General Miho's voice stopped him. Lord Deho. A word, if you please. The old general stood and walked over to the Dragon Lord. He spoke quietly, but in the silence of the room, many could hear. Your grandfather served with me. He was a good dragon. Honorable. Brave. He would be ashamed to see what you have become. Miho's eyes were hard. You let politics and pride make you forget what it means to serve. Today, you wanted power. The Empress wanted to save lives. Remember that difference. Deho's face flushed red, but he could not argue. He nodded stiffly and left the throne room, his remaining guards following behind him. As the doors closed, the tension in the room broke. People began talking, congratulating Hannah, sharing their relief that the invasion had been stopped. The atmosphere shifted from confrontation to celebration. Yuna tugged on Hannah's sleeve. Does this mean you get to stay Empress? Hannah smiled down at her. I think it does, little one. Good, Yuna said firmly. Because you are really good at it. Tameen laughed and picked up his daughter. Out of the mouths of children, he said to Hannah. She speaks the truth we all see. Juno approached the wheelchair again. Your Majesty, now that the emergency is over, would you allow me to make those upgrades I mentioned? Your wheelchair could be so much more than it is. Hannah considered this. For 10 years, she had seen her wheelchair as a symbol of weakness. Something to be ashamed of. Something that marked her as less than other dragons. But today, she had commanded a fleet from this wheelchair. She had saved an empire from this wheelchair. Maybe it was not a symbol of weakness after all. Yes, she said. I would like that. Over the next week, things changed in the palace. The Dragon Council met in emergency session. Several members, including those who had supported Deho, were removed from their positions. New council members were appointed, dragons who understood that the Empire needed to adapt and change. Juno worked on Hannah's wheelchair every day. He added better repulsor units, faster processors, and integrated communication systems. He even added some defensive features, just in case. When he was done, the wheelchair was a masterpiece of human engineering combined with dragon materials. Tameen was promoted to Director of Imperial Communications. His first act was to establish better information networks throughout the Empire, ensuring that all citizens could stay informed about important events. The days of isolated, uninformed populations were over. Little Yuna became something of a celebrity. The broadcast had shown her standing up to Lord Deho, calling him mean for being unkind to someone nice. Children across the Empire saw her courage and learned that bravery came in all sizes. Hannah held her first public celebration since the Battle of Croval Prime. She called it Unity Day, a holiday to remember that strength came from working together. The throne room was packed with dragons and humans, all celebrating as equals. As the party wound down, Hannah found herself once again at a table with Juno, Tameen, and Yuna. But this time, they were not alone. General Miho joined them, along with several of Hannah's military commanders and human workers. The table was full, surrounded by laughter and conversation. I want to thank you, Hannah said to the 3 humans who had started it all. You came to my birthday when I was alone. You stood with me when others wanted me removed. You reminded me that I was not weak, just different. Juno shook his head. Your Majesty, we did not do anything special. We just saw someone who needed friends. That is exactly why it was special, Hannah said. In a culture that values strength above all else, you valued kindness. You saw past my wheelchair to who I really was. Tameen raised his glass. To the Empress. May she rule for another 500 years. Everyone at the table raised their glasses and cheered. Yuna yawned, tired from the long celebration. She climbed into Hannah's lap without asking, something that would have shocked the old dragon court. But Hannah just wrapped her arms around the little girl, holding her gently. "Tell me a story," Yuna mumbled, half asleep already. "What kind of story?" Hannah asked. "A story about a dragon who could not fly but saved everyone anyway." Hannah smiled. Once upon a time, there was a dragon empress who lost her ability to walk. Everyone thought she was finished. But she discovered that she did not need legs to lead. She did not need to fly to soar. She had something more powerful than physical strength. She had wisdom, courage, and friends who believed in her. Yuna's eyes were closing. Did she live happily ever after? Hannah looked around the table at the people who had stood with her. Juno, who had fixed her wheelchair and her spirit. Tamine, who had given her a voice when others tried to silence her. Yuna, who had reminded her that kindness mattered more than strength. General Miho, who had never stopped believing in her. "Yes," Hannah said softly. She lived happily ever after. Because she learned that being alone was a choice, and she chose to let people in instead. Yuna smiled in her sleep. As the celebration continued around them, Hannah realized something important. Her birthday had started with her sitting alone in an empty throne room, feeling sorry for herself. It had ended with her surrounded by people who cared about her. Not because they had to. Not because she was Empress. But because they genuinely wanted to be there. Juno leaned back in his chair. "Your Majesty, I have a question." "Ask." "Next year, on your birthday, can we do this again? Maybe with more cake this time." Hannah laughed, a real laugh that came from deep in her heart. "Juno, I insist on it. In fact, I am making it an official imperial holiday. Everyone in the Empire gets the day off to celebrate with the people they care about." Tamine grinned. "The Council is going to love that." "The Council," Hannah said with a smile, "will learn to adapt. Just like I did." General Miho raised his glass again. "To adaptation. To friendship. To the greatest empress the Dragon Empire has ever known." The toast echoed through the throne room. Outside the palace windows, the twin suns were setting over the capital city. The empire was safe. The people were united. And the empress who ruled from a wheelchair had proven that true strength came not from the body, but from the heart. Hannah looked at the three humans who had asked if they could stay. That simple question had changed everything. It had reminded her of her worth. It had given her the courage to face her enemies. It had shown the Empire that different did not mean weak. "Thank you for staying," she said quietly. Juno, Tamine, and Yuna looked at her with warm smiles. "Always, Your Majesty," Tamine said. "Always." And as the celebration continued late into the night, Empress Hannah realized that she was not alone anymore. She had found her family. Not through blood or tradition, but through the simple act of three humans asking if they could stay for a birthday celebration. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could change an entire empire. The throne room was full of light and laughter. The wheelchair that had once been a symbol of shame now gleamed as a symbol of adaptation and strength. And the Dragon Empress who sat in it ruled not through fear or power, but through wisdom, compassion, and the love of her people. It was the best birthday she had ever had.